So what if death isn't really an end? What if it's just a change in frequency? Today, we're going to get into a biography with a pretty extraordinary claim. It's a story of Sonia Rinaldi, a woman who, this book says, spent her entire life trying to prove with actual data and recordings that life doesn't stop when the body does. It's a fascinating journey. So let's get right into it.
You know, this line, right from the book's opening poem, it just perfectly sets the stage. The story we're exploring today isn't framed as one of mysticism or just blind faith. It's presented as a journey of scientific courage, driven by this deep, intuitive feeling that there was something more to discover, something just beyond the veil of silence. And this journey, it begins in a pretty surprising place. You might expect this story to start with some kind of mystic child having visions, but nope. It starts with an observant, sensitive, and, most importantly, a deeply rational young girl who was just captivated by life's biggest questions. The book tells us that as a kid, Sonia was really troubled by this massive contradiction. On one side, you've got the accepted scientific rulebook that says when a person's gone, they're just gone. It's final. But that cold, hard fact just didn't square with the incredible, enduring power of love and memory.
So these are the questions that apparently just wouldn't let her go. And for her, they weren't just philosophical thoughts to ponder. No, they were hypotheses. And she decided that instead of just accepting the standard answers everyone else did, she had to test them for herself.
Right. So how in the world do you even begin to test an idea that huge? Well, her journey started not with faith, but with technology. She took her very first steps into a field she would eventually help pioneer: instrumental transcommunication.
And this right here is the heart of her work: instrumental transcommunication, or ITC. The key word you've got to remember is instrumental. The whole idea, as the book lays it out, is that this communication is technological. It's not about a person being a channel, it's about the machine being the channel, making it direct and, crucially, recordable.
Now, what's so cool about this slide is it shows you just how this all began. This wasn't some high-tech, billion-dollar laboratory. It was a room filled with everyday electronics, stuff you could probably find in a garage. A simple tape recorder, an old black and white TV, and a bunch of little radios, all tuned to different empty stations, creating this ocean of white noise.
And here's the crucial point from her early experiments. The book claims the voices weren't coming out of thin air, like a ghost whispering into a microphone. Instead, they were these tiny, almost impossible-to-hear modulations of the static that was already there. It was as if consciousness was hijacking the noise, using it like raw clay to sculpt words.
As you can probably imagine, this kind of work didn't stay in the realm of pure research for very long. The human element rushed to the forefront, and her lab quickly transformed into what the book calls a sanctuary of hope for grieving people.
The book tells the story of one of the first really pivotal cases. A mother, just consumed by grief after losing her child, came to Sonia. She wasn't looking for a miracle, just a sign, anything. So, Sonia did what she always did. She hit record.
And the initial recording was, just like all the others, basically a wall of static. But Sonia's process was meticulous. We're talking hours and hours of listening, applying filters, cleaning up the audio, and trying to isolate these tiny fragments of sound hidden inside all that noise. And then, out of the static, a faint but clear voice emerged. "Mom, I'm fine." And according to the book, the mother knew. Instantly. She recognized the voice, the tone, the unique way her child spoke. This was the moment her work started to become a bridge for the bereaved.
But, this path was anything but easy. The book details some huge resistance she faced from pretty much all sides. Academia tended to dismiss her work as pseudoscience. Some spiritualists were actually afraid she was trying to robotize a sacred process. Skeptics, of course, accused her of fraud. And on top of all that was the incredible emotional weight of constantly working with families in their deepest moments of grief. And yet, she kept going. Her goal was always to refine her methods, to push beyond these one-off strange events, and develop a process that was, in her eyes, a true science with a soul. Something rigorous, but also deeply compassionate.
And this is a perfect example of her constant innovation. The book is just filled with what she called her crazy ideas. She wasn't just using equipment off the shelf, she was inventing it. She built these spherical props, covered them in reflective materials, with the theory that if sound waves could be manipulated, then why not light waves? Why not try to capture images?
So you can really see this progression in her work over the decades. It all started with those first whispers in the noise. Then, it moved on to capturing what she called trans images, these shapes and faces that would appear in visual media. Later, she even started using artificial intelligence, not to create voices, but to help filter and clarify the real whispers she was recording. The ultimate endgame, the book says, was to develop a truly replicable protocol.
Her research also led to some pretty startling visual claims. The biography presents images just like this one, which it identifies as a trans image of her late husband, Fernando, supposedly captured through her unique methods.
And the phenomenon described weren't just limited to people. This slide shows an image that the book presents as an apparition of her dog, Honey. This suggests that the connection she was trying to document might even transcend species.
So, after all these decades of work, thousands of recordings, and facing down a world of skepticism, what's the ultimate message here? What's the one core idea at the very heart of Sonia Rinaldi's story?
Well, it really all boils down to this. The biography's central argument is that things like love, memory, and consciousness, they aren't just erased when the body fails. They simply transition to a different vibrational state, a different frequency that, with the right tools and a whole lot of patience, we might just learn to hear.
This final bit of poetry from the book really just says it all. It encapsulates her entire life's work. It's a message of profound comfort, suggesting that the connections we care about most are never really, truly broken.
And so we end with the question that this biography really leaves us with. It challenges us to maybe rethink the very nature of silence itself, and to just wonder what might be vibrating out there, just beyond the edge of what we can perceive.